Hello, now we're getting into the fun stuff. If you read along with our assignment for this week, it's chapters 19 through 23. And because we're doing a brief overview, we are not going to get into every detail, but there is some critical information, so we're going to hit the highlights. What I want you to focus on, because there's so much for this week, if you've gotten to chapter 19, we're doing 19 through 23. I want you to really focus on your e-meals, okay? I feel like that's one of the biggest, most important parts of this. So you may notice that what I asked you to do this week, your activity questions, I want you to pay attention to your E's, track how much you're having, work on your E's, and make a list of favorite E's. Pay attention to how they treat you and how you feel. Okay, so with chapter 19, it's welcome to the Wizzy, and we're covering in the Trim Healthy Wisdom book, what the Wizzy is about, how different it is from foundational THM. There are some key differences. And basically, back at the beginning of Trim Healthy Wisdom, if you felt like you fit into the S word category, which is stuck, if you feel like you're stuck, I'm not supposed to say that, but if you feel that way, it's a form of THM that you can use to heal and get your clean, lean body mass back. It's not just going to pretend that you had no insulin resistance, like skipping carbs or fasting can do. Okay, that's not what the Wizzy is about. The Wizzy is how you implement THM to truly heal. I get a lot of questions. I get messages on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and email asking me, do I have to do this? Does it work? Those are probably the top two questions beyond the technical questions about this. So no, you don't have to do the Wizzy. You can easily follow foundational THM. And I will tell you, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I consider myself very, very, very well versed in foundational THM. I have been a certified coach since the coaching program first opened. I was among the first coaches that there were for THM. I have been blogging about THM since 2014, and I've been on plan since 2012. I know the Trim Healthy Mama plan inside and out. I know it works incredibly well for so many people. So if you're not on plan and you're not following THM, I wouldn't necessarily jump to Trim Healthy Wisdom and be like, okay, let me implement all this extra stuff. What I would do instead, if you're interested in Trim Healthy Wisdom, get fully on plan. I teach you all the details of how to do that, how to make it easy, and how to put your systems in place and get results with my Trim Healthy Mama Bootcamp. So that's step one. You get fully on plan. Then I would start implementing some of the wisdom principles. And then if you feel like you need a shakeup, you need to do something different, something's not working as well, you want to heal from the inside out. Maybe you have insulin resistance like I did, that I fully healed with Trim Healthy Mama. If you feel that way, then maybe that you may not know that Trim Healthy Mama is really strongly recommending now is working towards half of your meals being e-meals. I'm going to be very frank with you. When someone comes to me and they want to join my THM bootcamp, or they want to hire me as a one-on-one coach, although I'm about to take a pretty long hiatus from one-on-one coaching, I've seen it a lot that people will say, hey, I have been on plan for a while and I'm not really losing. And so I have a checkpoint list of 2 dozen things that I go through when someone comes to me and they're already feeling stuck. Because in my boot camp, I work with people personally. We have a check-in call once you get to month 2. We check in on the phone every month. I check your food journals every single day. So I've got this checklist after all these years of experience where I can tell what's going to help the most. And one thing that I can see right off the bat for a lot of people is that they're not getting enough healthy carbs. And I will say, listen, you do a great job staying on plan. For some people, that's the case. For some people, I help them get on plan and make it feel easy and all of that first. For some people, they're on plan, but they're not getting enough ease. And if they tell me that they're stuck, I will be really honest and say that I have never, in the thousands of people I've coached, see anyone get to their goal and keep it off long term if they're not getting enough ease in. So I want you to remember that. If you're feeling that the increased ease is a little bit daunting in Trim Healthy Wisdom, we are working towards half of our meals being e-meals, and there is good reason for it. We need them. So that's one takeaway I want you to take from this. Focus on your ease, okay? But this plan is not something that you have to do. It's totally optional. And one point that they make is that foundational Trim Healthy Mama is really family friendly, and they probably are not going to need all these wisdom stuff. Kids definitely don't need the Wizzy approach. It's not for kids, and it's not for most men. So it's something to note. I have been focusing with my clients in boot camp who have been implementing this, and that brings me to the second question. Does it work? Yes, it works. I have been seeing really fantastic results with my boot campers. I have been feeling great myself and even lost a few pounds, even though I hadn't intended to, starting the wisdom approach, just to get healthy, which is fun and fantastic. I'm building muscle too, which is one of my big goals right now. So I love that. So the Wizzy approach, which is what we're covering in these chapters, it basically takes the wisdom principles that we've covered and gives them, we already read about those, it puts a method together for you to follow. So, but there are ways to adapt your meals to be more wisdom friendly. There are ways to take the things your family eats and pull out components for yourself to be wisdom friendly. So I want you to know it's not impossible, okay? So one thing that I really liked on pages 363 and 364 of the E section, the Wizzy E, is they cover what a foundational e-meal looks like versus a wisdom meal. So if you haven't read that yet, highly recommend it. I've been doing a lot of these things, and if you have not yet changed up, if you haven't tried any Wizzy e-meals yet, we're not using traditional foundational fats for our wisdom ease. And I have to tell you, I recommend tahini over nut butter. I think the taste is better if you're going to experiment with that. But I'd love to hear what you think of it, because again, I'm not teaching you like I am in my boot camp or with my clients all the details of the wisdom plan. This is more of a book study and a little highlight reel. But when we're putting our foundational e-meals together, yes, they're still slimming. Yes, they're still wonderful. But for those of us who have been stuck before, or if you're stuck right now, I have cheat sheet upon cheat sheet for my boot campers on the wisdom method. And it does take a little bit of time to get used to, but it's worth it. It's worth paying attention to. So when you're putting your, when you're putting your e-meals together the wisdom way, you're going to still choose your protein first. Where's your protein? You have to have your 25 grams, but your protein's going to look a little bit different. You have 3 options in the wisdom plan for what type of proteins you use, how you put your meals together. It's either going to be all animal-based protein, a combination of animal and plant-based. It could be one or the other, either plant-based or animal. You've got lots of options. And then you're going to put together add your healthy carbs. And for some people, we're able to bump that up a little bit. If you haven't read that yet in the Wisdom E chapter, that's exciting. Then you're going to add your plant-based fat, which is going to be a nut butter, nuts or seeds, or like 1/8 of an avocado or something like that, or, something along those lines. And then you're going to add more non-starchy veggies. So you've got a really solid full plate with your Wizzy E meal. Then they go on after the wisdom E meal is covered. And I almost felt like that was pretty, it's different. It doubles your plants. But what I love is I wrote down this quote to share with you guys. It says the Wizzy E meal doubles up on plants and doubles down on getting rid of body fat. It will ensure you get your adrenal soothing, cortisol lowering, and thyroid revving carbs with enough wise protein at the same time. So remember what we're doing. We're healing. We're not just throwing things together, which I think THM for a lot of us feels that way. Like, especially if you've been on plan for a while, it can feel like, okay, whatever works as long as it's on plan. And then when we're stuck, we're like, why am I stuck? This isn't working. Well, the wisdom principles explain a lot. The methylation chapter explains a lot. And then when we get into how to put these wiser meal options together, a lot of these are things that I've been doing with clients for years because they've shared about it on the podcast. One thing that I thought was so interesting when they talk about the meat plus carbs insulin issue, I think I wrote it down, page 383 of the chapters that we're going over today. They talk about how it might just be too much for your body to handle in your e-meals to go full meat. Your insulin might spike and not come back down. So for some people, you might want to consider switching to a different option. You might need to, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean you need to do it every time. Just sometimes you might need to. You might need to experiment with the different types of e-meals. You might need to experiment with different types of protein. There is so much to experiment with in Trim Healthy Wisdom. And we're having, increasing the carbs just a little bit is fantastic. So I'm having more potatoes. I'm having bigger sweet potatoes and 2 golden potatoes instead of just 1. And my body is loving it. But again, you're going to want to pay attention to that, and you're going to want to only increase wisely. So I think they give the guideline that you can experiment with potatoes, not to experiment with more beans and lentils unless it's in a soup. We don't want to experiment with more bread, like sprouted bread. We don't want to increase our corn and have higher consumption of that. We can maybe have a little bit more oats, but before you start doing that, if you're not working with a coach like me, please be careful and read through that chapter really carefully about how to have the larger carb portions. We really just want, I would say if you're going to be conservative, just increasing sweet potatoes and just increasing fruits to start might be a good way to see if your body can handle it and how your body does. Okay, and then in chapter 23, we covered the Wizzy E fat difference, and I'm so sorry, I have something that has been driving me crazy with my eye. It's really that we're not so oily anymore. We are not just throwing in a teaspoon of oil. We're looking for lower density. If you remember, we covered density already. And our Wizzy E fats are going to be the teaspoon of nut butter, the 1/8 of a medium avocado, a small amount of nuts or seeds. Those things are what we're doing. And a question I've gotten a lot from my clients and from people following along with this study are, can I use oil to cook? A light spray is okay. I don't know how I would how I would do with getting the pancakes done, the protein pancakes, if I didn't use a light spray of oil. So they do say you can. I'm just really careful with it. And sometimes if I feel like I might have accidentally gone overboard, I will just use a smaller amount of one of the other approved oils. So that's it in a very minimally covered nutshell. That's how these wisdom e-meals work. If you're in my boot camp, you've got the cheat sheets. If you're not in boot camp with me, I would read these chapters carefully, because one thing that I've seen and I've talked to a few people about, I don't want to be nosy, but as a coach, when I see someone post what they're calling a wisdom meal on social media and they're like, oh, this is my Wizzy lunch and it's got, a teaspoon of oil in it or something that's not quite correct, I think it's easy to kind of skim over these chapters and then put meals together incorrectly. So if you don't have someone like me checking your food journals, please read these chapters as carefully as you can. Especially, I know we already covered this. We're going to talk about the wisdom crossover. I have had multiple people reach out to me and say, oh, I'm incorporating crossovers. It's not going so well. And when I ask for more details, I'm seeing that they're doing foundational THM crossovers. That is not what the wisdom approach is suggesting. We're talking wisdom crossovers only, and we're going to get there. So my caution to you, just because I don't want you to either develop any habits that aren't going to help you a whole lot or get into things that might not be helpful at all, I would use caution with introducing some of these new principles until you've thoroughly read the chapter and you're sure you understand them. The wisdom E's are not the same as traditional foundational THM E's. The wisdom crossovers are definitely not. A wisdom crossover is basically your wisdom E with a little bit more of the approved E fat added. That's pretty much it. You're not doing like steak and a baked potato with a lot of butter. That's not a wisdom crossover. Incorporating things like that often, in my personal opinion, are not likely to be helping you, and in fact may set you back a little bit if your body can't handle that right now. So instead, please review carefully before you make the changes, but when you make the changes, give them time to work and tweak. One of the things I'm finding with my clients with Trim Healthy Wisdom is that if we start something, and let's say like I do a shakeup with one of my clients, and I've had this happen in my boot camp a couple times. We start out and we evaluate after a couple weeks. If somebody's not feeling great, we'll switch to a different option for their e-meals. We will increase their veggies. We'll change up the types of carbs they're having. We're paying attention to all these little things and tweaking them and getting really great results, but you kind of have to tweak as you go. And fortunately, Trim Healthy Wisdom tells you how to do that. So I'm so glad you're hanging out with me for this book study. I hope you're having a great time. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.